I mean, look, we got this story right here from NBC News. Biden administration to fill border wall gaps near Yuma, Arizona. Let me just break this story down for you in a simple tweet from Defiant Els. Karine Jean-Pierre tweeted in 2019, "Where are the pesos for your bigoted wall?" to real Donald Trump. Today, she says that they're filling major gaps in the border wall because Biden is trying to save lives.
Oh.
These people have no logic. There's no morals. It is just whatever their tribe wants, meaningless. But I'm curious your thoughts on this. Like, why would the Biden administration be doing anything in filling gaps in the border wall if they're failing us to this degree? I have no idea. Is it like their quota is done? Like, okay, that's all we needed. Close the walls, you know.
Well, I mean, it's the truth is that the issue of illegal immigration has been a football that's been passed back between Republicans and Democrats for years, and nothing really changes when it goes back and forth. It's always been a disaster. It's always been a massive problem. Honestly, something that's not really recognized is the Southern Border Program that Obama brought in place in 2014 was actually massively successful. He reduced illegal migration from Southern America by 70% by putting mass funding into checkpoints, walls, patrols down on the Guatemalan border. So there are actually, if you look back and forth between Republicans and Democrats, their policies aren't that different. The whole thing is just a disaster that they're all terrified to address in a strong, confident way because no one wants to be seen as the president that stopped all of the poor refugees or children from coming in, whatever the policy will be publicly. But they know they can't just have millions of people with no jobs, no background checks, nothing, sitting in Texas.
I figured it out. Remember that story we were talking about the other day where Mexican citizens were getting angry that Americans were coming down and they weren't speaking Spanish? Biden's building the wall to stop Americans from escaping.
Oh.
He's like, no, they're trying to get out. Quick, put the wall up. Got to bring them in. Got to bring them in.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is why, even if they want immigration for like supposed economic reasons, why all from Central and South America? Like, there's tons of immigrants from European countries that would love to come here. I mean, there's tons of Ukrainians that would love to come here. So I have my friends who are in Europe talk about how difficult it is to get a visa to fly to the U.S. And they say, you know, everyone knows you fly to Mexico, you can walk in and you're fine. But when you try to do it legally, they make it like impossible.
My wife is still going through immigration, and it's been since 2017.
And you said she's from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an EU nation.
That should be easy.
Yeah.
Right?
You walk right in, welcome.
She speaks perfect English.
And she's married to a U.S. citizen.
Right. And we have 3 kids.
Huh. Wow.
The cartel offer like full board deals for people that are typically from Asia, Arab countries, a lot of places. You can pay like 50 grand to get trafficked through Mexico into the U.S. as someone that has money that just doesn't want to wait for the official system. I was meeting Nigerians in Reynosa that were like, actually, I'm just walking up to Canada. This is just easier than applying for a visa. I'm visiting a friend in Nova Scotia, is what one guy told me. Wow. And he figured he'd take the route through Mexico and through the U.S. instead of just waiting on a visa because it was easier. It's just crazy.
Didn't you? You were looking at Americans who were fleeing into Canada.
Americans fleeing into Canada?
Yeah, didn't you go up and track that story or something like that?
Oh, Haitians, that was a while back. Yeah, there were Haitians walking through Roxham Road up into Quebec, I believe, that felt they were going to get deported by Trump after their refugee status had gone up and they were going to get sent back to Haiti. We opened our whole stadium there for them, and it was wild because you could literally just take a taxi to this suburban neighborhood, walk across this pathway, and the Canadian police were sitting there and they'd pick up your luggage for you and just walk you down to the stadium and give you a bed. We have no borders. It's all a joke. And I don't blame any migrant for coming in illegally when this is what they watch on the news. It's like, okay, I guess this is how your system works. Your cops are literally waiting there for us with buses and will take our luggage for us. And this happens in Texas too. They've got buses ready to transport them. They're like, come on in, whatever.
What would they have done in 1960 if this was happening?
We had very different immigration in 1960. Like, it wasn't, we didn't have the mass welfare states that we do now. Right? If you came in, it was like you're working or you're dying. So we didn't have so many people that didn't have jobs and didn't have support systems migrating. It was people that were ready to come in and die or work. Right?
But now they're getting unemployment or like Social
now that we've got
Security
massive support systems, the immigration is very different.
Okay. What if we built huge treadmills or, no, better yet, platforms that when you step on them, it spins a gear which generates power. So when all of these people are illegally crossing the border, they're all trampling these things, pushing these boxes down, generating electricity, and powering our grid.
Sounds like slavery with extra steps, bud.
A lot of extra steps if we do it
But
right.
hear them out. You know?
And then-
if they're planting like
but wait.
pollinator flowers to bring the bees back.
No, like what we do is, as they cross the border, they get blasted with pollen. So they're running through this field, pressing buttons with pollen, just pouring off their body.
They're the pollinators.
And then, once they get in, we take them and immediately put them in a pneumatic tube, which sends them back to their country.
I can't wait for the Media Matters article on this idea.
Back to the tube.
Yes, Tim makes Rick and Morty reference. They're outraged by it. No, my point is rather sarcastic as to what the U.S. government is actually doing. They're creating second-class citizens. They're talking about giving IDs to these people so they can have benefits. Okay, so they can't vote. They'll struggle to find work, but they'll let them be here to work. Yeah, they're creating serfs. The Democratic Party and their Republican neocon cohorts, they're creating a serf class. Yeah, I'm not for that.
Very true.
I'm not for that. I think people should enter legally. They should be treated respectfully. I don't think non-citizens should vote. But if you're a legal resident with the right to work, then congratulations. We can hang out, we can crack beers, and then pass your citizenship test, understand what this country means and why it means what it means. Come and vote, man. We're excited to have you. But just letting anybody come in at any time, nah, man.
And when your goal is to reduce racism in society or whatever, which is what many progressives claim their goal is, do you really think that's going to happen when if you're living in a poor, white neighborhood growing up and then a bunch of people come in and the only thing they do is they can't speak the same language as you. They only work lowest class minimum wage jobs. You're creating this perception in society of us and them when you don't have any sort of assimilation that takes place and there's no differences in groups of people that come in. It's all just one very low working class, non-integrated group of people. That's like a recipe for disaster they're creating. And I hope they realize, I think they realize what they're doing. If they do realize, damn, that's dark.
Yeah, the assimilation part is interesting because, why do people say New York is so lonely when there's so many people? I wouldn't go so far as to say that's absolutely true, but when you have people in the same neighborhood that, for one, maybe can't speak the same language, but they don't belong to the same culture, that right there creates separation in the very same neighborhood. There's something about that kind of rips the story apart, that kind of holds together, why is this going to be a good neighborhood at all? You got to be a part of the same story, and that doesn't seem like that's a care for any of the immigrants. It doesn't seem like, come in and, as you were saying, understand what this nation is, or what bonds us together, regardless of the nation, what bonds us together. And that's what my wife was saying about Holland. It was just this influx of immigration, and there was this rift, not just language-wise, but a lot of the immigrants, as she was saying, and she saw it, just did not care about the culture or the glue that connected the people.
The Swedish Prime Minister has come out just a few months ago and said, we are living in two parallel societies. And this is a left-wing Swedish Prime Minister, at least not right-wing anyways. And she's like, yeah, it's becoming a crisis in our country. These people are not assimilating. They're not getting jobs. They're not speaking the same language. We've got two countries.
They're 30 years too late.
Yep.
So I went down to Sweden, and I was hearing all this rhetoric from people on the right saying that the refugees were creating all this crime. I went there and found not true, actually. Completely not true. I mean, a little bit, but not really. The narrative of migrant refugees burning cars and stuff, some of those things were happening. The reality was the children, Swedish citizens, descendants of Somali migrants from the 90s, are the cause of a lot of, are the ones perpetrating a lot of the crime. The reason was, when the Somali refugees and migrants came to Sweden in the 90s, they said, just put them all in one place and forget about them. So these people had no incentive to learn the language and no ability to get jobs because Swedes are extremely racist. It is like everything you think about wokeism, Sweden. They claim to be for diversity, but they're extremely racist. So these are the kind of people that will be like, oh yeah, racism is so wrong. And then it's like, here's a migrant. Don't bring that person near me. So what they did was they put all the Somali migrants in places like Rinkeby is one place, I think it was. where a lot of Somali people end up living. They have kids. Those kids are raised by people of Somali descent. They're treated by other people in Sweden, by native Swedes, as immigrants, even though they were born there, speak the language, and are citizens. They go home to visit their families on their parents' side in Somalia, and they're called Swedish. They're not called, so they have no country. So what happens? When the police come into their neighborhoods, they say, you are not a part of our society at all. You are just people in a van as far as we're concerned. You can't do anything here. So we actually had, this was like one of the most contentious moments when we had cops tell us, they start throwing stones at us. What can we do? We just leave.
That happened to us in Paris years and years ago. Do you remember when we were in that no-go zone in Paris and the cops told us, like, if something happens, you're on your own?
Which one was
this
that? Are you sure I was there?
You were there. I'm pretty sure you were there.
Oh, wait.
There were riots going on. Yeah, remember we left you in the falafel store to die? Do you remember?
I remember those. There were big protests. And we couldn't get back to the Airbnb or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, they started yelling at us that they were going to kill us, and our translator said that, and we were like, "Where's Tim?" When we were going to find our car, and you were in the falafel store. That's all I'm like.
Are you sure that was me?
Absolutely sure. I did a video on it.
Really?
Shout out to falafel.
And you were like, "Forget Tim, we need to go."
For real.
Maybe I need to watch the video to remember.
It was years ago.
Yeah, I do remember in France, like there were big protests and the trains were blocked off and the cops wouldn't let anyone through and stuff like that.
We went to a few.
Yeah. Northern parts of France. I think I remember this. There was like a lot of crime. There were shootings, and locals were like scared. I remember when I went to Sweden the first time, this guy was scared to drive in certain neighborhoods because he was just like, these neighborhoods have become like their own. You know, they colloquially call them no-go zones. And then the media was like, there's no such thing as a no-go zone. Then you look at the definition and it's like, a no-go zone is an area where, you know, there's like high crime or police tell you to avoid. And like you either can't go there, you're told to avoid going there. And so in these areas, like you actually had Swedish police issue statements saying like, these are high crime areas, but then deny that they were in any way a no-go zone. And I'm like, my attitude was, I don't care what they're officially. The locals just refer to them that way.
Okay. And the cops too. The cops will say it too. They're like, this is a no-go zone, just so you know. Oh, but those don't exist, by the way.
Exactly.
Just don't say that publicly.
How does it compare to a favela?
To which?
I think favelas are awesome. Because I mean, at least when I was in Brazil, favelas were just like shanty towns, you know, in Brazil. Regular people live in regular lives. They're just, you know, poorer. And so the crazy thing was how people built houses on top of and through other people's houses. So like we went to one house where they have a neighbor. The neighbor one day just climbed up on top of the roofs and started building another house. To get to it, they have to go through the house. Nobody cares. I was like, wow, it's kind of crazy.
I haven't seen that, but I've been to some favelas that I would never go back to.
What is a favela? I've never heard this word.
It means shantytown.
Yeah, like in Brazil, it's.
So is it supposed to be like a dangerous area? Is that the idea?
Yeah, and it's definitely the lowest economic areas, and sometimes they're right next to like a high economic area.
You think
those are the most dangerous when there's like a contrast. If you go to super poor areas in the world where there's no contrast, there's no like jealousy or like trying to strive for that wealth or whatever, people are perfectly content. It's when there's that like developing societies are really rough.
I don't know, man. I mean, maybe they're dangerous, but maybe because I'm from Chicago, I just didn't feel that way to me. I mean that literally.
Could be.
Because, you know, they say Chicago's got more gun deaths than Iraq. Going to bed at night in the city and then hearing gunshots in the distance is just something you grow up with. Have like someone pulling out a gun at my local high school. Fight breaks out and some dude pulls out a gun. It's just like, I'm in the favelas in Brazil, and it's like a dude with like an open fire just grilling chicken, and we're like, this is cool. Yeah. They're like playing music and people were just chilling, and I was like, I don't know.
Have you seen City of God?
No.
It's all about the favelas. Really, really good story, but it's about how like the children gangs that were literally like kids from maybe 4 or 5 years old all the way up to like 15 with guns were like running some of these favelas.
You know what you got to understand though is that most people aren't insane. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know about that one, but
no, I mean, there are insane people, but I typically find in my travels, having covered, you know, conflict crisis, being in anarchist districts in like Turkey, is that there's a goal, there's an idea, there's like, you can see what they're doing and why they're doing it. They're not the Joker. So like when I'm in the favelas, they're like, here's likely what's going to happen. Like if someone wants to steal from you, they're going to take your stuff. I was warned when I was in Venezuela. They were like, When you get express kidnapped in Venezuela, they'll give you a ride anywhere you want to go. Like, their goal is to take your money, not to destroy your life, for the most part. So one guy told me a story where he was like, he went to an ATM machine, and as soon as he walked up, guy walked up to him and said, take your money out, and then now get in the car. They're driving in the car, and they're like, there's a guy pointing a gun, and he's like, give me your wallet, give me your stuff, give me your phone, give me all your cash. Where can we drop you off? And he's like, oh, you can drop me off here. And like, it was like a 20-minute drive. And then they like drove him. They're like, all right, man, have a go on. And he was like, all right, bye.
That's nice of them.
Well, because like, there are bad people. Some of these people will kill you. But if you look at some of these videos out of Brazil, you see them so often where someone's robbing a store and they get shot and killed. You may notice, like in these videos, the dude robbing is not prepared to shoot anyone. Like, have you seen these videos?
I think I know the idea you're talking about.
Tons of them.
Yeah.
A guy will walk into a store and then he'll pull out a gun and start pointing, and then everyone just unloads on him. The dude will try and run away because they were threatening these people but not really prepared to actually do it. But when you point a gun at someone, they're prepared to defend their own lives. This is the issue. These people, they're doing these robberies. They're not actually prepared to hurt an innocent person, but these people with the guns aren't innocent, so those people are. My point is, in my experience, having been to a lot of countries, if you just try and understand the people and their motivations, you're typically fine.
That's a really good point. I think the people you have to be the most scared of are it's the classic thing, the people who have nothing left to lose. Like, you never get in a fight with a crackhead. You're going to lose every time, or at least they're going to gouge your eyes out or
Zealots.
something before. Or like, you look at like the situation where those 2 girls were beheaded in Morocco in the mountains by these migrants who had been sitting there for years trying to get over into Soweto, Melilla, over the fences, and they can't go back, don't have enough money, destroyed their passports, can't go forward, nothing left to lose. Yeah. Just chop these girls' heads off after assaulting them. Like, geez, those are the scary. But you're right. If people have motivations that you can identify, you might be fine.
Right, but that also means like when you're seeing someone, when you see ISIS, you're like, I know their motivations. Run.
Yeah.
Like the average person. So my point is like you're going to a favela. The average motivation from a person is I'm going to get food for my family. I'm going to get nice clothes and try and just live. So then when they come up to you and they threaten you, it's like, if you just give them your stuff, they're going to leave you alone. Or you can figure out, are they really prepared to fight with you? And if typically you see this in the United States too, they did this study. They got a bunch of convicted criminals who had committed armed robberies, showed them videos of people walking and asked them, who would they choose to target? Turns out like over 80% of the time, the people they chose had been robbed before. There was something about the way people carried themselves that made them look weaker and susceptible. So that's, you can understand these things. For the most part, when I would go to like the favelas, that almost all people don't want trouble. Like a fox, for instance, will not come onto our property when the dog's around unless the fox is starving and it has no choice. And that's the issue. So most people, like when you come across someone who's like desperate, they might, not want to destroy you, but they'll take your stuff. The real scary thing is ideologues, because they want to destroy you because those people are crazy. Depending on where you are, like there was that one story about the 2 people riding their bikes through Tajikistan or whatever, and then ISIS just rammed them and like ran them over or whatever. Because some places are dominated by ideologues and zealots. You got to watch out for that. I tell you this, I would gladly, with a smile on my face, walk through any favela in Brazil, going to stores, hanging out with people, and not worry about it. But I would be much, much more worried to go to like a protest in New York City where there's leftists. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because I know their motivations. The motivations of the left is violence, bricks, anger, and rage. They'll scream in your face. They'll do what they did to Andy No. In a favela, it's people, they want to sell you a cheeseburger, man.
Yeah.
Cheeseburger might, have worms in it, depending on who you're getting it cooked from, but they're
no one there wants to be known on the internet as the guy who threw a brick at Tim's Pool's head. Like, they don't care there.
In the
favelas.
For sure.
Yeah.
No.
Whereas New York, there's probably a few of those.
What's really messed up though is the favela tours they started doing a while ago, where rich tourists will get on buses and drive through poor neighborhoods as a tourist attraction. That's disgusting.
That is
super nasty.
Geez, I feel like I'm looking at images of favelas, thinking about how cool they look.
They do.
I'm kind of like that guy on taking a tour right now. But you pull up the image.
He's just doing it on the internet.
It's a spectacular imagery to see the way they build these houses in these communities.
Well, I mean, they're like
it's like a
not
Dr. Seuss
built
book.
with any
Yeah, there's probably no structural integrity. Like, there's no building codes and whatever.
Getting from building to building is the
limited.
craziest thing because there's like zigzagging narrow corridors, like one human body length wide.
That's so interesting.
I went to what was it? What is it called? It's Ciudad do Policia, I think. My Portuguese it's not existent. They had built a mock favela for trainings for favela policing and combat, because the favelas are random. You know, like in the States, it's a grid system we use for most cities. So
There's a logic.
there's a logic to it.
Yeah.
But in favelas, it's like you're going to turn the corner and some guy's going to pop out of a window. That was really fun when I went down there because we climbed on top of their mock favela. And I think it was like 8 feet or 10 feet. And then I asked the cop and I was like, what do you do when you're up here? And the guy's down there and he's like, heh. And then he jumps down. He's like, just like that. And then I jumped down after him and he was like, whoa. He was like, don't get hurt, man. I'm like, I'm good. And he was actually really surprised I did it because, you know, he thought like, we do training here. We can handle it. And I'm like, I've been skating for
Yeah, you
20 years.
skateboard.
I was like, I can jump off a building. I'm good.
Bet they're pretty good at parkour.
Oh yeah.
No, for real, man. That's why the police needed to build this place, build a mock favela for training, because you try to chase down a dude who lives there. Home field advantage.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, it's a maze. I'm telling you, I went to one house. To get to the neighbor's house, you had to walk through their kitchen. Like walk through their house to get to the next house.
This is like perfect Assassin's Creed territory.
Yeah.
You just jump everywhere, all over the.
But the crazy thing is the power lines, because
Yeah.
But they've been doing for a while now something called reclamation or pacification, where they've been sending in these like high-powered tactical units, rifles to just clear out the gangs. The gangs were the real government of the favelas
yeah.
because there was no government. So what happens is the gangs, they'd call them, started to, like locals would organize and come up with their own systems of governance. That's what humans do. When the government tried to say like, hey, these people should be paying taxes and we should have control of this, they went in and started rounding these people up, shooting them in many circumstances. It was pretty brutal.
Just another
Damn.
gang.
Yep.
You know, there's a pretty euphoric way to get mugged. In I think it's like Ecuador and Colombia, they use towe or scopolamine, where you just like, it's this powder that you can put on a piece of paper, and they'll go up to like tourists and they just blow it in their face, and then makes you so suggestible that you're like, all right, can you go to the ATM? Can you pull out all the cash that you have, and now take me back to your hotel or wherever you stay in? Where are your valuables? And you'll just say it. You'll give it up. And
People are shocked. They like don't remember. Yeah, they blow it in your face.
Mhm.
It's the zombie drug.
yeah,
I think it's the strongest nightshade, scopolamine.
scopolamine. Yeah, it comes. I don't think it comes
That's
from.
a really respectable way to mug someone.
Right.
That's very
I'd
nice
like
of
to get
you.
mugged that way
Yeah.
someday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chemically.
If
Yeah.
I'm going to get mugged, that's going to be the one.
No,
I
I'll
pick.
I'll do it regardless.
They call it the devil's breath, the scopolamine.
breath.
Yeah,
Oh.
some put it
Hyoscine.
in ayahuasca as well. They call
Wow.
it towe, but they make it an admixture of ayahuasca, and then sometimes people get taken advantage of that way. But
I kind of
Oh.
feel like it's got to be an urban legend, the potency of scopolamine. You know,
maybe
like these stories of people, someone will like walk up to them at the ATM and then do like the witch doctor thing where they go and blow it in your face, and then you're like, ugh, and then they zombify you. That's crazy. Like, how does that actually happen? You know?
I wonder the same thing
Oh,
about.
it treats motion sickness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it has uses.
Yeah.
Is there, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just gonna I was just reading this thing in this weird magazine
Crime.
called Thought
Yeah.
Nachos.
Crime.
About about PCP and like leading it, to cannibalism. PCP leading people into cannibalism, and how many stories came up with that.
Oh, when I was in Mexico, something really interesting I was told was that, all the human sacrifices they did in, like, what was it, Mayan culture or
The
whatever?
Aztecs.
Sorry,
Yeah.
the Aztecs, not Mayans. They were telling me that they'd put the people on, like, shrooms and tons of different drugs, and they actually wanted to be sacrificed because they thought it was, like, such a noble, important death. And when they were on all these drugs, it was actually, like, this beautiful experience. It made people's hearts being eaten a lot more lovely for me,
What
the
if
idea
that's-
of it.
That's
But what if-
romantic.
What
Yeah.
if that's how you ascend?
True.
You take DMT until you blast off, sending your spirit into the fourth dimension. Then they sacrifice your body, severing the tether and keeping you trapped in the fourth dimension.
You're on another level right now.
Man, I feel like I'm on DMT.
So your spirit's already in the other dimension. You don't have to experience the visceral transaction. you're already peacefully there.
And then they kick you down a flight of steps.
And your friends eat your heart. That's cute.
Yeah, have you guys
Those City
what was
and Blades.
Apocalypto?
Yeah.
Mel Gibson.
I think.
Movie was
Did you guys
brutal.
watch Vikings?
I haven't seen it.
No.
Wasn't that like a thing in Vikings too, where they'd talk about how it was like a huge honor to be sacrificed to the gods, and people would want to get that position?
It was definitely.
I mean,
pagan thing.
I don't know how much Vikings is like referencing historical information, but I
Yeah.
just know that's like a theme.
Geez, what the ancient Lithuanian cults and stuff would do that for sure. What are these pagan?
They would even take
religions.
body parts or eat body parts of, the conquered peoples.
Well, I guess
to-
that's this is still a thing today. You have like ISIS members that
Yeah,
are like, "Bam, gonna blow myself
wanna-
up."
Romuva religion.
Reading the crime about scopolamine, they don't blow it in your face. They just lace your drink with it.
So is
Okay.
there video of someone getting dosed with scopolamine and then being like, "Yes, master," or anything like that?
No, it's a roofie. Like I'm reading about it, it just makes you like delirious and loopy. So you're probably just like, wow. And then they're like, "What's your ATM number?" And you go, bah, bah.
I kind of feel like
Can't
there's got to
remember
be a YouTuber that's like,
Vice-
today I'm going to
Yeah,
get
Hannibal.
scopolamined.
Well, Vice, that one of the very early things was like they got some scopolamine and they were like, "Whoa!" and they flushed it down the toilet. They don't touch it.
What was
I
that
saw that
guy's-
one, yeah.
There was that Vice anchor that would go out and do a bunch of drugs. Is it Hannibal? Is that his name?
Hannibal, no, it's Hamilton Morris.
Hamilton.
Hamilton.
Sorry, Hamilton. I
Close
keep saying
enough.
Hannibal.
Hannibal's Pharmacopoeia.
Hamilton's pharmacopoeia.
Hannibal was a guy who ate people.
Hamilton's like, I'm going to do this for you. And then he would take all these different drugs and be like, now you know what it's like for me to be on drugs. But I mean, that's a lot of great work he did.
Wasn't his
lot of
dad
great
a
work.
famous guy? Who's his dad?
I can't remember, but you're right. Yeah. I
Errol Morris?
met him, and he really does talk that slow.
Oh, cool.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.